And welcome to another episode of the Market Value Chart Show, right here at 6 Scale Cantina. So Director Krennic is really hot within the secondary marketplace. It has broken out of the $300 tier range into the $400 tier range, and it is slowly catching up to where Grand Moff Tarkin is, and that figure very recently broke into the $500 tier range. Does that kind of tell the story of where a Moff Gideon is going to trend once that figure hits waitlist? We're going to dive into it right now. Alright, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Market Value Chart Show right here at 6 Scale Cantina. So getting right into it, Director Krennic has just been super hot within the secondary marketplace for Star Wars hot toys. Getting into a couple of recent auctions, you can see right here that back on Jan 27, $465 with 13 bids. Wow. Going to another auction. Back on Jan 28, $449 this sold for. This Director Krennic figure is a really nice figure. It is one of the better head sculpts that Hot Toys has ever released for Star Wars. It really captures the look of Director Krennic within Rogue One. And I can certainly see why that this is very sought after for Star Wars collectors. This in particular figure is very versatile within a collection. You can display it with Grand Moff Tarkin. You can display Krennic with Vader. You can display Krennic with a plethora of troopers. Every character from Rogue One, so on and so forth. It definitely has a lot of value for collectors and collections. So this figure, very recently, you could get within the mid $300 range. As a matter of fact, just going back a couple of months ago, you could get this figure at $325 roughly. Beforehand, maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago, was somewhere around $340, $350, and then it dipped down, but it caught right back up to that $350 range, and then was lingering into the high $300 tier, and now has broken into the $400 tier range, which is just very remarkable right now for this figure. I think this is an outstanding figure, but I am a bit surprised with this Krennic release that it is hitting into that $400 tier. When you go ahead and look at the other officer figure, Grand Moff Tarkin, this figure was holding very steady within the secondary marketplace for a long time. And it was rising in value, even before the hype of The Mandalorian Season 2. Even before The Mandalorian Season 2, the first episode even aired, if this figure would show up on a buy-sell group for $400 or $425, it was scooped up in the first day. Certainly now it'll be scooped up in seconds at that price. This figure is well into the $500 tier range now. Now, this particular figure here, I love the way Hot Toys captured Peter Cushing within this release. This is arguably, maybe, could be one of the best head sculpts ever for Star Wars, for Hot Toys, for sure. When you go to the market value chart, and remember, whenever you navigate to the market value chart on that current value column, hit that arrow a couple times so you get the highest ranked figures to the lowest ranked. We'll go down to Tarkin and highlighted right on the screen, $504 and rising, and then going to Krennic, you could see right here highlighted $433 and rising. Wow. So, you have to wonder, is it possible that the Moff Gideon figure, once that gets released and goes on waitlist, is it possible that this figure can wind up in the same tier, that $400 tier range that you see Director Krennic trending at right now? Or even where you see the Grand Moff Tarkin figure in the $500 tier range? Is it possible? I think the answer is yes, it is possible. How likely is it? We have to put several factors into consideration. Number one, the Grand Moff Tarkin figure is like an officer. It's a Grand Moff going to Krennic. That's a director. So Gideon, another Moff figure. So, all these, directors, admirals, Moffs type figures, they seem to be, for some collectors anyway, something that is very desirable. So a lot of times what can happen for a collector and in collections is once you start, gathering an ensemble of, like for instance, these officers, these directors, these admirals, you may want to collect all of them, especially with these in particular figures. You see here, this has a head sculpt, obviously the Moff Tarkin head sculpt, and then you have the Director Krennic head sculpt. There are going to be some collectors that are perhaps going to want the whole ensemble. Quite similarly, the way you would want, different troopers. You'd want every different variation, every different version. Another figure that's a good example is Boba Fett. There are some collectors that are happy with just one. And then there are also a handful of collectors that just, they want a couple. But there are a handful of collectors that also want just every version of every Boba Fett. So could this be the case with this Moff Gideon figure? Could it hit that $400 tier where Krennic is? Or that $500 tier where Tarkin is? So something to consider with Hot Toys and the popularity of Star Wars. Not every Star Wars figure which hits waitlist, which is basically all of them, virtually, once they hit waitlist, not all of them go into that $400 tier. Some of them are stuck within that $200 tier, where most of them retail for. And some of them break into the $300 tier. You get a good majority in that low 300 range. Maybe they'll hit the mid 300 range. But not all of them at all hit the $400 tier range, or a $500 tier range, or a $600 tier, and so on and so forth. For instance, you can go ahead and take a look at this Princess Leia figure. Princess Leia is iconic. This is not a questionable head sculpt, like, for instance, maybe a New Hope Luke. This is one of the better head sculpts released by Hot Toys. You can still pick this up in the mid $200 tier range. And this is an iconic original trilogy figure. You can also go ahead and look at, here is a Stormtrooper from A New Hope. This in particular figure here, $325 with this in particular listing, and very easily you can get this figure in the high $200 tier range. So there is a vast array of Star Wars Hot Toys that hit waitlist and sell out that don't come close to a $400 tier range, let alone even the $300 tier range or break out of the $200 tier range. So you have to wonder, is it possible then that this Moff Gideon figure is going to hit where Krennic is right now, which broke into the $400 tier range, or also Grand Moff Tarkin in the $500 tier range? And the answer is possible. It is possible. that it will do that. So while it is possible that this Moff Gideon figure could hit the $400 tier range or beyond, why does it matter? And so one of the things to consider when you are a collector, or you are collecting figures that are going for a price range such as you see on the screen, $250, which is a pretty decent value to invest in. You don't want to be completely oblivious to if that figure is going to hold its value within the secondary market. Is it going to rise in value? Would be a good thing to know. Or the most important thing, is it going to potentially decrease in value? So when you are purchasing a home, you can simply, I just want the house, I like the house, so go buy it. But if you have your head completely buried in the sand, and maybe let's say you bought a house for $200,000 and you can only sell it for $50,000 because you weren't paying attention or really just didn't care if it was going to hold its value, that would possibly be a poor investment. Same thing when you are investing in Hot Toys figures. It is an investment. And the reason why it really matters is, suppose you need to get out from under these figures because you need some money. You want to be able to know that you can get the value back out of it, for sure. Or if you're going to wind up losing. Even if it winds up staying within a $200 tier range and you pay $200 for it, a lot of times with platform fees, taxes, and then the time that you put into it, time is money, you many times will lose if you don't invest in the collectible accordingly. So it's something that you really need to pay attention to. And the second thing is, even if you don't need the money, part of collecting, part of the whole art of it, is being able to turn over your collection so that you can build your collection. Now, there are a lot of collectors, including myself. I keep the majority of what I get. But there are some pieces that I sometimes want to turn over to be able to get some other pieces. And those pieces that I'm looking to sell, because I don't have as deep of a desire for them anymore, hopefully I invested in them well enough that I'm able to get my money back from them, or maybe even get a little bit extra, which really helps in building your collection. So that is why understanding secondary market pricing is so important. Again, as I mentioned earlier, not every Star Wars hot toy, even though they basically all go on waitlist and eventually sell out, not all of them hit a $400 tier, even when the market is hot. It just doesn't happen with every figure. And then you have the $500 tier, and then you also have a $600 tier as well. So it's something that you really have to consider when you're investing in collectibles. And it is an investment, even if it's not an investment, because a lot of times you need to turn over your collection or build upon your collection. So that brings me to the next point, which is hype. Why is hype important? Two things about hype. Don't fall into the hype, but you need to follow the hype. Case in point, I am a diehard Star Wars fan. Diehard Star Wars fan. Now, when the Mud Trooper was going well over $400 and $425, and in some cases $450, as a diehard Star Wars collector, I didn't buy into the hype. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even buy that figure at retail price or even for $100. Not because I don't think the figure is good. I actually think that figure is great. I'm just not interested in it. I already had a Han Solo figure from the Solo movie with the more traditional Han Solo outfit, And because I had that figure, and and with that outfit, and that's the outfit I really wanted, I didn't buy into the hype. I didn't just buy a figure because, oh, it's an investment. I mean, a lot of times with these things, there's ebbs and flows, and you never can know 100% about reissues or how the market's going to go. Really, action figures aren't something to invest in like stocks and bonds. That's not why you do this. However, you need to, as I said before, not have your head completely in the sand, because that's part of being a collector. So you really want to keep that in mind. Don't fall into the hype, but you also need to follow the hype. So, for instance, if I know this Moff Gideon figure is something that I absolutely am going to get, and I have the money and resources already allocated, or I already budgeted out where I know I'm going to get this, then, but if for some reason I don't pre-order it, or for some reason I just let it, oh, it's in stock, I'll just let it go and let it go on wait list. Why would I do that unless I have money to burn if I'm following the secondary market and I can kind of tell this might go into the $300 tier range? Do I just want to burn another $100? Let alone if it's possible that this can go into the $400 tier range. And that is why following secondary market pricing, especially for figures that have prices of this magnitude, is so very, very important. So again, don't fall for the hype or buy into the hype, but certainly follow the hype, especially if it's for action figures that you have funds for and that you absolutely 100% intend on getting. And so that will bring to a conclusion this episode of the Market Value Chart Show. Please go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I thank you so very much for your support. We have garnered so many subscribers in such a short period of time, and so I thank you very much for spreading the word around about not only our channel, but also the Market Value Chart at 6scalecantina.com. Please don't forget to follow us on Facebook and on Instagram for all your latest market value chart news. I have the links to those social platforms within the video description below. Remember, many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. See you next time.